and in numerous meetings and video conferences since.
Robert, a quick follow on that. Is Karzai our ally?
Karzai is the democratically elected leader of Afghanistan.
But that's not what I asked. Is he our ally? Is he the ally of the United States?
There are times in which the actions that he takes are constructive to governance. I would say that the remarks he's made, I can't imagine that anybody in this country found them anything other than troubling. So our position on this, Jake, is that when the Afghan leaders take steps to improve governance and root out corruption, then the president will say kind words. When leaders need to hear stern language from this administration about the consequences of not acting, we'll do that as well.
Follow on Jake's follow, which is, Peter
Galbraith. A little early for Wimbledon.
Yeah. Peter Galbraith was on MSNBC this morning saying that Karzai was mentally unstable and suggesting that he was on drugs. Following up on Jake, is he a credible partner to the U.S.?
Again, he is the democratically elected leader of Afghanistan. And as I just said to Jake, we will not hesitate to ensure that the remarkable investment that our men and women are making is met with the type of governance that has to be in place in order to secure parts of a dangerous country. We'll continue to speak out again if need be. And we want to see President Karzai fulfill the commitments that he enunciated both in his inaugural address and at a donors conference in London. Those commitments he made not just to his people, but to the international community that have invested in ensuring the security of his country. Connie?
Yeah, I want to ask about coal and nuclear. By the way, isn't this poppy season in Afghanistan, parenthetically? Anyway, on coal, does the president favor stronger penalties for coal companies that might have violated safety rules?
Well, obviously, if there are safety violations, the president believes that those violations have to be met with the full force of the law.
And on nuclear, I know it's nuclear weapons, but might you discuss nuclear power and nuclear waste? Is that likely to come up?
At the Nuclear Security Summit, it's not. I don't think that's something that they'll spend a lot of time on. Mark?
Robert, did the United States receive a clarification of Karzai's remarks that you asked for last week?
President Karzai called Secretary Clinton, I believe, on Friday. Yes.
And did that clarify anything?
Well, I would refer you to the statement that PJ and the State Department put out on that. Yes.
Well, PJ made it sound as though Karzai was stunned that his remarks caused a stir.
Well, I can't. Now you're asking me to think for Karzai through PJ. So I think that seems out of body.
Well, do you need a further clarification?
As I've said, the remarks are troubling and untruthful. I don't know why. I don't know why somebody continues to insinuate that there was some sort of foreign corruption when the very thing that he speaks of was looked into. So I can't begin to decide what reasoning he had for making those comments. Again, our focus is on ensuring that he is continuing to take the necessary steps in governance and corruption.
And next week's bilaterals, are those here or at the convention center?
They're at the convention center. If I'm not mistaken, there's a pretty big press build out over there. And those will all, at least the last time I checked, they were all over at the convention center. I will double check.
You did mention Netanyahu. Is he coming? Will there be a bilateral there?
Israel will be here. I'm not sure if he's coming. We will have at that point recently met with President Sarkozy, President Medvedev, and Prime Minister Netanyahu. So we are not meeting separately with those three because we've done so fairly recently.
Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said today that Russia may exit the arms reduction treaty if the U.S. increases missile defense. What's the president's reaction to that?
Well, any country can leave any treaty at any time. So I'm not entirely sure what he's threatening to do. I would simply say that as I spoke of here when we announced a change in our missile defense capabilities to ensure that the potential threat from Iran in protecting the security of both Europe and the United States, that was our focus, and that remains our focus on missile defense. I would point out that when we announced that, the Russians hailed that. So our stance on missile defense hasn't changed, despite the fact that they are now seem to be looking at it through a different lens. I think he's also, if I'm not mistaken, talking about a missile defense capability that offensive in nature that doesn't exist.
Will the president bring it up in Prague when he goes?
If President Medvedev, if they discuss missile defense, the president will simply reiterate what he and others have told anybody in the world, that our posture on missile defense is to ensure the security of this country and just our allies in Europe from a growing threat and possible threat from Iran.
And the Prague schedule doesn't have any Obama-Medvedev availability on it, press availability. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, it is. There was, I think, a little confusion on the press schedule that went out. There is the signing the signing, the statements, and the Q&A. It's all blocked off as the signing. So our apologies if that confused.
The usual number of questions per side?
Half each. Yes. I always love these things. We go to these things, one question apiece, and then whoever gets called on asks 4 questions.
What, do you play this?
No, but it's always curious to know that when you've asked 4 questions and then you say, I can't believe we only got 1 question. Yes, ma'am.
I know what that feels like.
That's right. I would not, in your case, be thinking of a question for Prague. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
You will come back to me.
I will.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask about an issue brought up by the group called the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows. Apparently they've sent a video letter to the president expressing concerns about the trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They support the decision to go with a civilian trial. They're expressing concern now that there are discussions or negotiations of a compromise with folks like Senator Lindsey Graham for getting KSM to a military tribunal. They say to do so would amount to the president buckling under political pressure. First, is there anything new on that front with discussions about the trial? And second, how do you respond to their accusation?
Well, I do not know whether the letter has, I don't know in what part of transit that's in. I would say this, there's nothing new that I know of. I still think we're a few weeks away from a decision. I would say that we are looking at many possibilities based on the fact that Congress became heavily involved in the potential choosing of venues for such a trial. And we understand the security and logistical concerns that a city like New York has. So given those concerns and given congressional prerogatives, we're looking at all available alternatives. Yes, sir.
Robert, 2 quick questions. On this ratification in the Senate, do you all have any early indication of